Uh, whew. Who likes point guards? Playing the one position in basketball, right? I want to talk about the top 5 best players of the 2010 era. Okay? That's a decade from 2010 to 2019 was 10 years. That's the end of a decade. Well, the definition of a decade is 10 years, right? And a lot of people still forget to count the first year, not ending in one. The first year actually ends, well, the first year actually begins with the zero. Okay, zeros are a part of a year when you're adding a decade. Some people actually forget about that. All right? But now, when you think of point guards, traditional point guards, you think of guys that play make, have high IQ, guys that get other players involved. You don't necessarily think of guys that look for their own shot. But this is the changing of a guard. Welcome to 2020. Welcome to 2010 era as well, where guys, point guards mainly, change their roles and their responsibilities actually changed too as well, right? So, with that being said, I want to go down the list of my top 5 best players of the era that played the point guard position, a very important position in basketball. One of the 5 top positions, of course. Number 5, I got Uncle Drew, aka Mr. Handles, Kyrie Irving. Now we all know he helped LeBron win that title in 2016. He was the number 2. Now, currently he's trying to be a number 1. He was a number 1 on Boston. That didn't end out too well. And he's going to be fighting for the number 1 position with Kevin Durant. Now, he doesn't like media talk too much. So he's going to have to put up with a lot of whose team it is type of talk. Because that type of talk is going to come up, especially when you got 2 superstars on the team. It has to be justified that who's the number 1 on the team, right? Let's talk about pros of Kyrie Irving. This guy got drafted, number 1 draft pick. He had injury problems, was derailed his career a little bit, held him back. But when he started playing, he failed to lift his team to the playoffs. They actually didn't even stiff the playoffs. And they had a nice young core. They played in the Eastern Conference. So when you play in the Eastern Conference, you should at least be able to carry your team to the playoffs. And, you know, at least be a first round exit at most, right? So with that being said, in that aspects he failed. But the player, Kyrie Irving, great ball handler, excellent scorer. Not as efficient, but if you pair him with another superstar, his game edges out just quite well. Great 3-point shooter. Great finisher at the rim. Kyrie Irving is one of the top 5, if not the best point guard in the NBA today that could finish at the rim. Nobody could finish at the rim like Kyrie Irving. He could actually get to the cup with the best of them, with so much skill to get to the cup because his handles could break down a lot of defenders. His cons, bad leadership. Let's see what else. Oh God, bad defensive player. Defense and Kyrie Irving names don't go in the same sentence. I mean, that's one of his biggest Achilles heels is defense. He's an underrated passer. He's a pretty good passer when he wants to be, but he's still a scorer for his point guard, which you can't knock against him because this is a new era. And even if it's not a new era, if that's his skill set, scoring first, then so be it. That doesn't mean he's not a good playmaker. Kyrie Irving is a great, underrated playmaker. But those flaws I just mentioned are flaws that always going to carry with him. He also has a bad shot selection sometimes. You know, he could get a little too heavy-handed on shooting too much. remember him and Deion Waiters went at it. Fighting over the ball for who gets most attention. That's bad leadership right there. Number 4 is a guy that doesn't have a championship, but he was the number 1 on his team for longer than Kyrie Irving, played in a much tougher Western Conference, and got his team to the conference finals last year. That's Damian Lillard. All right. Much like Kyrie, he has good handles. He has a great three-point shot. He's a squeaky scorer, though, just like Kyrie. And his shot selection is pretty poor. Most players shoot from half-court threes. You would get benched. Even in today's basketball, it just seems to pretty much out there to be shooting the three ball that far away from the basket. He's a great mid-range shooter. He's also good at getting to the basket as well. But I think his bread and butter is shooting the three ball. That's where his majority of his scoring comes from. He's a 20-plus point scorer a game. Great basketball player. His basketball IQ and playmaking ability, on the other hand, needs improvement. He seems to isolate some of his teammates, which is cons. That's what we're getting into. He isolates a lot of his teammates. He gets stagnant offense. Too many ISO one-on-one basketball play, which hurts his team a lot. You can see that even with examples with Carmelo Anthony's pretty much taking completely out the game. Him and CJ McCullough just seems to go back and forth, taking all the shots they want. Flawed. All right. At number 3, I got Mr. Triple-Double himself, now currently playing on the Houston Rockets, Russell Westbrook. Okay? This guy is one of the most, if not the most athletic point guard to ever play basketball. This guy's a wrecking ball. He could get to the basket with ease. He never seems to run out of energy. He keeps going at you and going at you whatever way he could. He talks and he backs it up by keep going at you. His best benefit, his major pro, is attacking the basket. That's when he's at his best, when he's attacking the basket, forcing the action, and getting other teammates involved. Now, this guy averages a triple-double. He will pass you the ball. He will go after it and go rebound for you. He'll literally do anything it takes to try to win. Anything you require him to do. The downfalls of Westbrook, which is his cons, is he get too caught up in the games. Too much, I could do this all by myself. And even if he averages a triple-double, he has too much control of the ball, too much control of the action, which leads to turnovers and things of that nature, and costing his team a game. Now, a lot of people say he doesn't play winning basketball. This is why, because of those flaws come into play. And his basketball IQ is still pretty low. He makes poor shot selection, poor decisions with the basketball sometimes because he gets caught up. You could just talk to him and he gets pissed off and he gets completely taken out the game. All right. Number 2 is one of the purest point guards ever to play basketball with no championship. All right. But he's had numerous chances to get a championship. I'm talking none other than CP3, Chris Paul. What a great point guard. This guy's a great scorer, mid-range shooter. He passes the ball and playmaking is his best feature that he has as a basketball player, playmaking and getting others involved. He's a little crafty defensive player, but his size hurts his defensive ability. He's still not as feisty as let's say Patrick Beverley. His cons would definitely be his scoring ability seems to not be up to par sometimes. Sometimes it goes off and on. He's like J.R. Smith of scoring. It goes up and down. He's a defensive liability sometimes because of his height, which you can't do nothing about that. But he seems to take defensive plays off sometimes. He's just not that type of guy. But his basketball IQ is heavily up there. He's really up there. He's one of the smartest point guards of all time. Now that brings me to the final contestant. The best point guard of the 2010 era. the decade, none other than 3-time champion. He had to be a champion to be number one on this list. Steph Curry, the chef. All right? Chef Curry. Greatest 3-point shooter of all time. Greatest per shooter of all time, period. Future Hall of Famer. 2-time MVP. Unanimous MVP. And he's knocking on the door at the top 10 of all-time players list. But it's still not quite there yet. But you still can make an argument for him. Steph Curry's an assassin, man. This guy is a 3-point specialist. Man, the guy pull up from parking lots hitting 3-pointers. He's a great ball handler. He could get to the basket pretty good. He could finish at the basket pretty good. He's an okay defender. His cons is the defense and, believe it or not, playmaking. He is a good passer, but he's a bad playmaker. Those are two complete different things. So, yeah. I mean, that's my top 5 greatest point guards of the 2010 era. Peace.